Ukiah Valley Sanitation District Board is called to order at 6 p.m. Wednesday, March 28, 2018 for a special meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chelsea, would you please take roll?
Chair McNairland.
Present.
Vice Chair Reed. Here. Director Witt.
Here.
Director Blockham. Director Marshall.
Present.
All right. Okay, does anyone from the gallery wish to comment on items that are not on the agenda? Now is your time.
For the record, my name is Don Crawford. I'm a ratepayer for the district. For some time now, I've been trying to get some correspondence addressed by members or specific members that may be part of their purview about my question about the financing of the political ads that service in late September, October, before the election. I've talked with people who know what it costs, not in totality, but each of those ads is probably north of $1,000. It was in the Ukiah Daily Journal, Hometown Shopper, and there was a website that clearly had the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District logo. It at times represented political opinions. So the thing that bugs me the most is that this could very easily be misuse of public funds. I'm astounded that it keeps thrown to the back burner. I know that you're all engaged in some infamous stuff, which I'm not here for tonight. I'm just as an honest request, I want to find out who net paid for it, whether the media paid for the ads and the district paid the media, or whether the attorney paid the media and billed the district. I want to make sure, for all of our benefits, that public funds weren't used in an unethical or even illegal manner. So I thought that we had this established, that it was going to be on the agenda tonight, but I don't understand all the machinations that go on behind the scenes about how this agenda is created, but it's not on there that I can see. It was on once before and never got discussed. So I think it's about time, just in fairness to the ratepayers, that it be taken a little more seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else? No.
Yes.
Ross.
Oh, sorry, Ross.
Sorry.
Sorry. Stand up, brother.
Do I have to stand up?
Oh, come on.
Podium.
But you don't actually have to state your name if you don't want to. So.
I'm Ross Liberty. Obviously, there's a lawsuit between I haven't heard this news, but there's a lawsuit between the city and the sand district, and it seems like I know in private matters, in private lawsuits, basically, if you get to that point where you're in a lawsuit, you want to kill them and step on their neck. You just want to win, and it is a win-lose kind of situation, and it's fair and reasonable that everybody plays their cards close to the vest, and that they don't show their hand, and I get that. I think though in the case of one municipality suing another, I think it's better to have kind of full disclosure and full transparency. And the value of that is that, and the difference is that hopefully, this municipalities that are engaged in this are all trying to find the right answer. They're not trying to win and the other party lose. They're trying to find the right answer. And that's best arrived at by open and transparent and generally amicable discussions. But I don't think that's what's happening in this case. I think there's too much from past members and city council, or not city council, but city people and Sand District people, where there's a lot of animosity, and there's still it still seems to exist, and I think the cards are still being played close to the vest, and that's not the best way to come to a resolution. So that was just my thoughts on that. Thanks.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Discussion and possible action, Brown Act violations by our board. On the back table are emails sent by a member of our board and CC to every member of the board. Having everyone on this board has already received them, but I made copies for you as well. We have gone through Brown Act training and we have gone through ethics training, and some people on this board have gone through it twice this year. I'm going to read part of the Brown Act. It says, in addition, Government Code 5492B states that, except as authorized pursuant to the Government Code, any use of direct communication, personal intermediaries, or technological device that is employed by a majority of the members of the legislative body to develop a collective concurrence to an action to be taken on an item by the members of the legislative body is prohibited. This includes emails. So having one board member extensively communicate to the rest of us is a violation of the Brown Act. So I wanted to bring that to light, so it is no longer a violation, so it is public. And that's my reason for doing this. And I request our board members to review the Brown Act and to seek remedial training if you don't understand the Brown Act or don't understand how these emails are a violation of the Brown Act. Is there any discussion by the board? Is there anyone from the gallery wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to, oh, I'm sorry, our council.
I'm available to discuss it. If anyone has a questions of whether sending something to another member or other members is a violation, that's what we're here for.
Thank you. I'm sorry, gentleman in the back.
It's okay, you go first.
I'm sorry,
I'm
he got you by a couple seconds.
I'm sorry. I just glanced at the emails that I haven't seen before. It looks like the subject is put some items on the agenda.
No, it actually, it's her seeking, going out and seeking people to fill positions, which this board has not decided on or given direction to. It's not communication from a committee, it's from an individual.
No, I'm just, what she's asking the other board members to consider is putting, adding to the agenda some discussion with this proposed
Please.
consultant. I'm just pointing out that it wasn't calling for any kind of decision by the board or.
Let's see, I have
feedback from the
developed
board.
a job draft description. I have an interim candidate named Colin. I will provide your resume to him. These are all decisions that should be coming public to a board and not be sending via email to everyone.
Is there more than just this one? email?
I put three separate emails back there. Would anybody like copies if did not get them?
It's, since we just now got to read the emails and wasn't quite sure the specificity since you didn't provide any in your, you just ambiguously said you're not supposed to email all the board members and you didn't get into specifics exactly what you thought the Brown Act violation was. It's kind of difficult to retort, I guess, but I quickly skimmed some of the emails and we do know that it is okay for one board member to send an email to all board members, correct? Do we all know that that's not a Brown Act violation? Does your attorney know this? I hope.
I'm sorry, but you're here to comment for
Yeah.
3 minutes, and
Yeah,
you
no.
don't need to ask this question.
Want to ask the
Please
question,
comment.
you can answer it in your own head if you want, but you do know that you can send an email, one person, to all board members, and it's not a Brown Act violation. Where it becomes a Brown Act violation is when you start discussing possible policy decisions and everyone starts going back and forth. Now, I skimmed the email. It's a little questionable. Some of the information was probably a bit much to provide because you were kind of offering a suggested opinion, I think. But again, I just skimmed these and you gave us, 40 seconds to review as the public to review. So all I'm saying is, I think what I heard from you is that your board members cannot send an email to all of the board members. That's not true. And I think your attorney knows that. And I got more of it that usually falls on deaf ears, so thank you.
Mr. Lozak, would you like to expand on this for clarity?
Yeah, I mean, Brown Act says what it does, the emails say what they do. It's questionable whether or not she was seeking a consensus on different items, and that's the concern.
I would prefer this board err on the side of caution and conservatism when it comes to Brown Act violations. Yes, Director Baucom.
So, is anybody, as you can see, the candidates are not here tonight, so I didn't realize I overstepped my bounds asking candidates to show up, so I called them. But my point is that I called the chairman twice to discuss it with her. She never returned my phone calls. All she did was send nasty emails. And the unprofessionalism of not just calling up to discuss this and setting it straight before a meeting and wasting time in a meeting, and then not putting the general manager description on the agenda, which I asked 3 times. I've been asking for 2 meetings, and I've been working really hard to put together a description that I emailed to everybody on the board so they could look it over and we could discuss it in the public and make changes so that we could put an RFP out. So, I just take issue with, I'm losing confidence in our chairman to put things on the agenda that we asked for. It's just there's roadblocks thrown in front of us. I was late, but we tried to have a governance committee meeting and that was never materialized because we requested it from the chairman and it was never posted. And so I have real issue with that.
I'd like to respond. Here's the email I sent back to you when I thought it was inappropriate what you're doing. Julie, I understand you're wanting to find an auditor, and I truly appreciate your initiative, but you are acting without board direction, which is inappropriate. We have to place an ad and hire an auditor and DM, then we have to put in the newspaper and open to bids. Because it is public funds, we have protocol, policies, and regulations we must follow. By giving a potential auditor district documents, you could be jeopardizing our ability to hire him in an open process. I must ask you to please stop this. I will put the recruitment of an auditor and DM on the agenda. You cannot have potential candidates show up to the meeting next week.
There are no
And you said, I disagree with your analysis. Don't tell me what to do. The people elected me. So I did not send you a nasty email back,
But you
okay?
never called.
I'm sorry, I have the floor right now. No, because I don't want to call you, because if you have had that conversation with one other person on this board, then it is a Brown Act violation.
I didn't.
Yes, you've never had it with Hendricks. Second of all, it is not my job to post an agenda for a governance committee, a committee I do not sit on. I make sure that this board and this agenda is made and posted. Whoever is on the governance committee, which are you 2 directors, are in charge of that. Now, you had an agenda from the meeting that was canceled, and all you had to do was take a Sharpie and put a new date on it and post it. And you could have had that meeting. So if you can decide you want to recruit a DM, decide you want to recruit an auditor, put together all the billing for all of our, but yet you can't put an agenda together, and that's my fault, I disagree.
No, we thought it was
I'm
your
sorry,
job.
Mr. Marshall.
Well, first of all, I can't appreciate Spaulding's interest in trying to get this resolved. I do think you did a pretty good job of explaining that there's got to be a certain method to using it. Right now, we are under the microscope, and it wouldn't take much if we were to fall outside of the Brown Act, because then everything starts to collapse. We do have a responsibility to the district ratepayers, and I know that's what you're trying to fulfill, but if we don't do it within the confines of what was prescribed within the Brown Act, then we can end up with more difficulty. So perhaps if you weren't aware of these things, hey, that can happen. But do be aware that there has to be a due process. And in response to this gentleman earlier, I do believe that we have corresponded through emails before, so it's not that we don't correspond through emails, but whenever we do correspond, it has to fit within the confines of Brown Act, and that's something that we're very careful about.
Director Reed?
I appreciate the information on posting the agenda. I have been speaking with you and Doug both via email regarding setting up the meeting. It would have been an appropriate time by either of you to let us know that that would be the case. Doug did ask to you and I who would be in charge of posting the agenda, and that was never responded to. So
It was my understanding you were communicating with Chelsea.
I did
And I was
communicate with
only
her on
being-
if the room was available.
I thought I was just being CC'd as an FYI. And your committee has to meet, your committee was assigned to give us the job description of the district manager. That can't, once the board decides that as a body, we cannot just get that from one individual member. That has to be at a posted committee meeting and brought as a committee recommendation to this board to make changes, not make changes, and approve. So while I appreciate wanting to put that on the agenda, it was the direction of this board as a body to send it to a committee and give their recommendation, which is why that's not on the agenda. Now, the committee meets and asks, and I asked if you wanted a committee on the agenda, and you said you guys hadn't met, so that's why it's not here. I took it off at your request, because you hadn't met. Meet and we'll put it on the agenda. Once the board makes a decision to put something to your committee, I can't just grab it from an individual member. That's not how it works.
No, I'm happy to know now that that's what happens during our meeting 2 weeks ago when we discussed the agenda. It wasn't
Okay. Just
expressed to us.
Just
so-
go through Chelsea and she'll help you put it together. Any more discussion on this item? Number 4 is discussion only. I'm sorry, someone from the gallery?
Moving forward.
Board members acting in administrative capacity without board direction or approval. This kind of ties in to the first. I just want to bring to light the California Health and Safety Code is what formed the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District. And it states that all powers of the district shall be exercised by the board unless otherwise specified. Also, the board of directors is a unit of authority within the district. Apart from his or her normal functions as a part of this unit, directors have no individual authority. We also have a policy, a policy within ours, our board policy, where is it? That we have made that says all direction comes from the board as a whole. Nobody can go off on their own and recruit someone. Nobody can go off on their own and recruit a, auditor. No one can recruit a district manager. No one personally can put a district manager job description. And certainly no one can do the calculations for this year's rates when we get the water use numbers for March. That's not within a job description. We are a governing board and we are here to govern. We have staff do administrative work. A governing board is a group of people who formulate policy and direct an institution along with its management. That's from the dictionary. Here's what CSDA says. One of the most significant responsibilities as a board trustee is to understand that the board is a team and you need to work together as such. A united approach will help to strengthen the district and provide grounds for maintaining a clear vision of the future, a unity of purpose, and a cohesive board. The role of the board is to support and assess the performance of the general manager and employees, approve personnel policies, establish salary structure and benefits packages, approve job descriptions and organizational structure, establish strong communications link between the board and the general manager, ensure sound fiscal policy exists and controls are in place, approve the annual budget, develop reserve guidelines, establishing financial goals, reviewing district finances, developing capital improvement plans, setting rates and fees, and the like. So there's a difference between being an administrator and calculating people's bills and being on this board as a governing member. And I think we need to, I actually handed out CSDA information, our first meeting in this room, I believe. And if everyone still has it, I'd like everyone to go back and review it, because it really defines what the role of the board member is and what the role of staff is. And I think we need to pay attention to that. Does everyone understand? Does anybody from the gallery wish to comment on this item?
Are you on item 4?
Yes, sir.
You keep referring to the board as if you assume that all 5 people will be here all the time. Does a quorum represent the board in voting? I asked to have previous mentioned letter on the agenda tonight. I witnessed a vote, it was unanimous of the quorum, and someone in their machinations decided that wasn't good enough to have that particular item on this agenda. So I want you to define to me what the difference is between a board and a quorum of the board.
There's no difference, and if
Okay.
this board,
Thank you.
if there's 3 members that were sitting at this meeting during our meeting 2 weeks ago that voted on something, I haven't seen that vote because I haven't seen the minutes yet. So I apologize if the quorum of this body did vote to put something on the agenda, it's not here. I will make sure it's on the next agenda, sir.
Okay, well, I mistook that you had something to do with not having it on there. Thank you.
That was part of my email that I sent you last week requesting.
I did not see that the board voted on it unanimously, or the 3 parts of the board,
Or
or
that was posted.
I was not in this room during that board meeting. Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, regarding this item number 4 on the duties of the board and the administrative duties, in theory, that's absolutely right. When you have a capable staff doing everything you're supposed to do, and you have a governing board and everything's moving smoothly, I have some news for you all. This board is not moving smoothly. In fact, it's an unprecedented board called the United States of America. It has nothing like this going on. I know the state of California doesn't have anything like this going on. And I'll be specific on the like this going on later, maybe in a subsequent email, but when I highly suggest every single board member to learn as much as they can about every budget, every audit, everything you can to at least know what's going on. That's really how you handle things. Now, if you had an administration that was kind of kicking butt, not you're a little bit non-compliant with Government Code 26909 with your annual audits. And I've heard all the excuses why you don't have your audits, but you're way beyond. You have 3 budgets essentially. You have a budget hanging over at the county that you use that doesn't really get reported in the public, where you use to pay for your legal fees, your transfers over to the petty cash budget, I call it, the one you guys use out of your checking account here. And then you have a little bit over $5 million sitting over in the city for your ratepayer money, with an approximate $1 million in surplus every year with no capital improvements plan. Your administration isn't doing their job. So I would suggest highly that everyone tries to do what Julie's doing and try to understand this. I'm looking at an email from her that says, warning, please do not reply to this email, which is how you're supposed to do this. Attached is a copy of the last audit complete by the board in 2009 according to the auditor, blah, blah, blah. I forward it to your potential auditor candidate so he can better answer questions, whatever. Your response, as I stated in an earlier email to you, you are not within your authority to do this. board has not given you this direction. I'm not even sure what you're talking about, but it is very common for one board member to share information with all the other board members that's absolutely pertinent and relevant. And that's the audit that was done in 2009, probably the last one you've done. So,
Okay, there were 3 emails that accompanied that.
Yeah, what were
Okay, also, here's an email. I am planning to do the calculations for this year's rates when we get the water numbers from March. I will get help from the city and I will work for free. That is not the role of a board member. That has not been asked to be done by this board to any one of these board members.
okay, I think you're missing
Thank
my
you. I think you're missing mine.
point. If there was one.
Mr. Marshall, Director Marshall.
Yeah, this gentleman is a good example of how you can inflate language, make it kind of like we're going to attack, make it less about the issues and more about how he wants to create a sense of anger. It's pretty clear through these emails that Julie was stepping beyond the original intent, which was for the committee to come up with some alternatives to the current district manager, and perhaps even an auditor, because that had been accepted by the board. So the circulation of an email just falls outside of what's been established by the Brown Act. But I do appreciate this gentleman coming in, because it does, again, highlight the challenges that we have as a board. And we aren't really failing. We're not really failures, sir. In fact, what we do is actually having a great impact. So I really appreciate your input. Thank you.
That was lovely.
Director
and
Bachman.
condescending.
Yeah.
So,
Well done.
what I meant with that email is there's an urgency. We are way behind. We've got to start calculating the water numbers, and I'm happy to help because we need to save money for the district. And I met for almost 2 hours with Lori at the city today. She explained the entire process to me, and it's pretty straightforward. And she said with just a little guidance that Chelsea could do all the calculations with a little help from me and herself for the business hookups are the most complicated. But there's not that many businesses in the district that she said she would help make sure. But John Dickerson did it last year. He has the whole thing set up.
Director
and-
Bachman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we actually discuss this on recruiting someone to calculate?
Yeah.
I think it's more appropriate for that item on the agenda.
Well, I was just offering my
But-
services, that's all. I
No,
didn't
we
mean
can
to step out of bounds.
we
Again,
can address that.
if you just call me on the phone and say, hey, I would be happy to talk it over. I'm really very approachable. And when I don't get phone calls back and I leave messages, 2 or 3 messages, it's kind of irritating that we can't talk about things.
Is there any other discussion from the gallery or the board on this item? Let's get to item number 5, Ukiah Gun Club. In our packet, we received a letter from the Ukiah Gun Club requesting a waiver to connect to the sewer system. They have an existing bathroom. They're upgrading their facility. And 2 minutes before I walked through the door to this meeting, I was approached by Mr. Lozak, our attorney, regarding this matter. So would you like to speak first?
I would very briefly. One is ordinance number 12, section 3.5 addresses the issue of sewer required any structure located within a district in which plumbing is to be installed into which a public sewer is available shall, at the expense of the owner of the property, connect the plumbing of such structure to the proper public sewer in accordance with the provision of this ordinance. A public sewer shall be deemed to be available if a public sewer is located within 200 feet of the property line of the property involved. And then policy 5040.17 actually is states grant or deny a request for relief and waiver as allowed by the provisions of section 2.5 of the district ordinance number 12, and then section policy number 5040.40 list the process and then the requirements for such a waiver. And I think that needs to be at least looked at and adhered to in this. And the one thing is, my understanding is the gun club is a renter and the owner is the city of Ukiah. And I think the application for the waiver should come from the city since they're responsible for the fees, not the renter.
And is it a specific form they have to fill out, or?
No, they're just different provisions. They have to, circumstances which may constitute special conditions for granting a relief of application and waiver of this requirement are as follows, and then it lists several different requirements that can be considered by the board.
So I know they have been talking to the district manager, and they are here tonight. So I was hoping at least if this board, if it has to be done by the city, I know the city would not, I know the city would want our board's recommendation if they filed that, correct? So I think that at least we could make a recommendation as a board, listen to, since they're here, listen to them, and then address it as a board, and we can communicate that to the city if the city is the one who needs to file for the waiver. Do you agree with that, Mr.
That's
Lissa?
fine. Sure, the board was clear of what the ordinance and the rules and the policy states.
Dr. Wick, do you want to speak before
Oh,
gallery?
is the sewer main within 200 feet of the property line?
Yeah.
It is? Okay. And that's the criteria, property line, not building.
What was the structure? Was it the structure or the property line?
I think it's property line.
Property line.
Yep.
So I'll let them explain, but they have an existing septic
Yeah.
with an existing bathroom, and they're upgrading, putting in ADA compliant, and they want to just connect to the septic instead of going down to the sewer line.
Is it multiple parcels? Not that it's none of my business. Is it multiple parcels? Because it might not be on the property line.
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe it's one parcel.
It's 199, I believe. It's a 199 acre parcel.
Gentlemen, would you like your time?
Sure. My name is Eric Klein. I'm the director of the Ukiah Club.
Managed Office, Director, Ukiah.
On behalf of Mike Mussel, our board president, he couldn't make it at the City Planning Commission meeting tonight. And he wrote the letter requesting the waiver of the ordinance. Through the process, just real quickly, we rebuilt our main range. Our main rifle range was basically in disrepair. Was ready to fall over. We started rebuilding it. We thought, man, it'd be great to put a bathroom in this. It's kind of all perfect for that. When we went to do that, the city kind of directed us that we needed to come approach you guys. So the city actually sent us here. They wanted the letter, and they asked us to approach the ordinance and a waiver against the ordinance. So that's kind of where we're at. It is really set up to go right into our existing septic system. That's what we were thinking, but obviously if you have.
Quick question. So you're putting in an ADA bathroom. Is this replacing an existing bathroom?
It's actually not. We have porta potties on site, and we have two bathrooms in our clubhouse.
Right.
It's just a convenient spot to put a bathroom. People out there use the facility, get great access to it. We have a ramp up there all through the city codes.
Would you know what the septic is rated for?
Yeah, so we have a 250 gallon tank, 150 feet of leach field, so that's rated at 600 gallons a day. We approximately use 200 gallons a week.
Okay.
So we use about 70 gallons a day.
It's not a high traffic area.
It's really not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that has a reference to tying in or not, but it's not high traffic area. People use the facility, they have to use the restroom once in a while, they do. But
Okay.
So what's that?
Just have a question. Has there been any citations or for the septic system that you've had since it's been in place?
that I don't know.
Or none that you know of?
Not that I know of.
The EPA is out there quite often, so I think we would have probably heard about something. Any red flags we would be aware of.
Yeah.
They are. Director Whit, have a question?
Oh, I didn't put it down from the last time.
Mr. Lozak, are there any questions we should be asking them?
No, that was the main one, is, I mean, 4.0, 5.0, 40.411 states, one of the requirements, a private sewage disposal system recently rehabilitated or repaired and no public safety and health violations have been issued by reason of the private sewage disposal system.
Okay.
I will comment that this has been granted by the city in different instances where it's been, and the county, to rehabilitate a septic system, or if it doesn't need rehabilitation, to allow it to exist if it's a hardship to get it to the existing sewer, I've been involved in a couple of them, so, and it's not without precedent, I guess I would say.
That's good information. Is the gun club a nonprofit?
It is.
And it's used by law enforcement locally
Yep.
for practice? And I know I did my conceal and carry there.
Yeah, the
Training.
sheriff utilizes the CCW program, it's a facility. We actually had 12 agencies, I believe, that use the facility, law enforcement agencies, several in Sonoma County as well come up. Yeah.
It's one of the few gun clubs outside of Santa Rosa or
It really
or
is.
Petaluma.
It really
There is no bad
There is none.
Petaluma is in Arizona.
They don't have one anymore. It used to be Cotty Rod and Gun.
Okay.
I was a junior trap champion, no big deal.
Excuse me,
Please you come on up.
but my twins, Molly and Claire McNerlin, were also junior trap champions. Thank you.
It's a facility that's utilized by the public and by law enforcement quite a bit.
So if there's something we need to do in a different route, I'm not sure what that is, I'd like to find out what that is.
As a quick follow-up to what Mr. Whip had to say, I think that the ordinance, the question is, you have an existing system, and if it is not working, the district has to provide services within a certain distance. That's kind of a backup plan. So anyway, that's just kind of a little bit of clarification. Last thing, so by them making this presentation, now we have when they go back to the city, is that what the next step is?
No, the approval or denial is with this board. My only comment was that section 3.5 of ordinance 12 says it really is the owner of the property. At the expense of the owner of property, the owner shall connect it to the structure. In this case, we have the tenant applying for a waiver. It's not clear whether that's appropriate or not appropriate. I don't see that big of a problem with it. Let me read you section 2.5 of the ordinance, which says, when any person by reason of special circumstances of the opinion that any provision of this ordinance is unjust or inequitable as applied to his premises, he may make written application to the board stating the special circumstances, citing the provision complained of, and requesting suspension or modification of that provision as applied. And then, if such application be approved, the board may, but only to the extent compatible with state and federal laws, regulations pertaining to wastewater facilities constructed in part with grant funds, by resolution suspend or modify the provisions complained of as applied to such premises to be effective as of the date of the application and continuing during the period of the special circumstances. The board at its discretion may, but only to the extent compatible with state and federal laws, rules and regulations pertaining to wastewater facilities constructed in part with grant funds, by resolution waive, suspend, or modify any requirement provision of this ordinance. So the board would need to adopt an ordinance at a future meeting exempting the gun club from requirements to hook up for, at least right now, at this period of time.
We would have to, I'm sorry, just
Adopt
for
a
clarification.
resolution.
We would have to adopt a resolution.
A resolution, yeah. I may have misspoken, it's an ordinance, but it's a resolution.
Okay. Anything else, fellas? And if not, I'll open it up to the rest of the public. Yes, Director Marshall?
How large is this parcel?
100 acres, or it's 99 acres.
Yeah,
99 acres.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, our club actually utilizes about 30 acres of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of green space.
A lot of area, all right.
Yeah.
Does anyone else from the gallery wish to comment on this item?
I have something pretty important to do from here. I just want to make the board needs to know, to make it clear that Eric was standing there humbly while you were bragging about Junior, your kids. Eric, tell them about your son, Duncan.
Oh, no, we know about
Let's hear it.
Duncan. Are you kidding me?
What's the story?
Not me.
He's a legend.
That's it.
Okay.
I yield my time.
He's a
Thank you.
phenom, basically.
Yeah, I know, right?
Unfortunately, I peaked at 11, so.
Okay, just Google him.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Does anyone else from the gallery have a comment? So, is there a motion from the board to direct staff to draft a resolution to present at our next board meeting to exempt, to waive the gun club from having to connect to the sewer line?
I move that we draft a resolution allowing the gun club to not connect to the sewer line.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to advise staff to draft a resolution to provide a waiver for the gun club. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Unanimous consent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for hearing us.
We have a regular meeting in 2 weeks and we'll bring that forward, okay?
Thank you.
Item number 6. Discussion and possible action to recruit contractor to calculate customer billing. And I would like to give the floor to Director Baca because you have the information on this.
Okay. I wish I could Xerox this. We're just waiting till the end of March. The district calculates using 3 months of water data, and we're just waiting till the end of March to get the March's water use for the 3 water districts that are in the district. Then we take the average of January, February, March. And the spreadsheets were done last year, and all the calculations on Excel spreadsheets. And what we need to do is, Lori explained it to me, is take the March sheets from the city, from like, here's Millview Water, and it has the addresses and the current and the water use. And you have to check the addresses because some people move and names change. So you take the March, the latest water use, and you check all the individual names to make sure that no one's moved or changed. And then you input by hand January, February, March, and then the Excel spreadsheet calculates the average. And it's pretty easy. We have that all set up. We'll just, and then we have to calculate, everyone gets a 3.4 unit of water allowance. Well, it's on there who doesn't get them. But anyway, all the residential get that, and then if it's an apartment complex, then it's each unit gets 3.4 allowance. So there are certain allowances, but one water unit is 748 gallons. So if a homeowner is less than 1, then they just get the basic charge, which is $53.47. Every unit above that is 6. Yeah, I'm sorry, I wish I could make copies for everybody. Every unit above that water unit is $6.60 above the $53.47. So if it's 3 units of water, then it's 3 times 6.60 plus 53.47. The master report, the city goes through, these are people in the district who are on septic, so those are the water use numbers, but they don't have sewers. So we have all the people who are not we don't have to calculate for. And so it's pretty straightforward. We can start right now, and Lori said that she's worked with Chelsea, and she has confidence that Chelsea could do it, and I
Well, I've
could.
never done that.
No, but I could, it's pretty easy. I can help Chelsea get started, and it's just pretty much inputting numbers. And then the commercial, the apartment complexes and the commercial gets no allowances, so they're coded 100, which is 6 units or above, are billed based on the consumption, and commercial coded 200 or less than 6 units, and they're only charged the basic charge. So we would have to watch the commercial ones, or probably look those over carefully, but most of it is residential. John Dickerson has all the spreadsheets from last year, so all the calculations are already in there, so it's pretty good, and we can start with the January and February input of numbers right now. It's due by the beginning of August, because they bill the end of August with the new rates. Lori said she would be happy to work with Chelsea and help us in any way that she can. So I think that I could help Chelsea, and we could start on this right away.
Director Wood?
Why are we utilizing a 3-month period? I just.
That's a board decision.
Yeah, I just a question now. I asked the city, you're January and February,
No,
right?
just January, just January.
I can tell you why.
Why?
It's a policy the board made because just getting a snapshot in January, we felt like people were taking vacation in January or showering at the gym every day in January, so that their sewer bills would be lower all week. I've had personal conversations with, and so the board thought a truer rating would be averaging 3 months. It's a little harder to take a shower at the gym every day for 3 months.
I was just thinking maybe 2
That's
months
why.
might be a,
We can address
if you look at the data, which I looked over, everybody's running pretty much the same. I guess maybe it took the shower and at the gym out of everybody's mind, but whatever.
Really?
But I think that would pick up, a vast discrepancy from a leak, or, it would pick up a problem.
But that's actually an
I
item
think it'd
for
be less
future meeting, because the item
calculations.
on,
I'm just throwing that out there, that maybe we need to look at that.
and we can look at that as a
More
board.
work to arrive at, I think, basically the same answer.
So, yeah, just to reiterate, the decision, I remember that specifically, we were actually trying to be more equitable. We thought that the idea of spreading it out over those 3 months would be more equitable, more accurate. It wasn't necessarily to catch anybody at anything, but we just felt it was more reasonable.
It's more accurate, for sure.
It's just, to us, it just seemed like a better idea, not necessarily thinking that we were gonna catch anybody.
Well, it's not much more work. I just, when I went through, I seemed to find that pretty much it's the same result month after month.
In addition to that, it did give us, because let's say we only used 1 month, somebody comes in and complains, so whether it's a water leak or we're not there or whatever, that 3 months gave us a little bit more of a leverage, if you will, that allowed us to say, well, this is how we came up with the number. Because there were people actually taking off during that month, just in order to either avoid the water usage or whatever. And we do use the winter months, because the idea is nobody's watering during the winter months. Because if you start using it during the summer, then you got people watering their lawns, and that's going to bump the rate up. So that's the reason.
So Chelsea, how many ratepayers do we have?
I don't know the exact number, I'm sure.
Roundly 3,000?
Yeah,
About 3,000?
yeah.
And
So it's a huge project that
Chelsea works 20 hours a week,
I don't think
and
that-
all 20 hours are filled right now. There is no way we can put a project like this
It's really,
onto a 20-hour per
it's
week
easy,
person.
but it's time consuming.
yeah.
Very.
it is
I mean, we're
time.
talking about hand checking 3,000 lines of data.
No,
So,
yeah, it's time, it's a little time consuming, but you have till August to do it, and if we get,
I think we should recruit somebody with a little more time, expertise for this specific task. And that's why it's on the agenda. Is there any board discussion on that specific part of this agenda item?
We need to come up with a job description and put out an RFP for someone to do it.
Can we just direct staff to do that?
Yes,
Is that a motion, Ernie?
that would be a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I can open it up to public comment after a second. Is there a second? So we don't leave that motion hanging.
What was the motion?
To
RFP.
direct staff to put together an RFP, job description, and get it out to recruit for this position.
I second the motion to get an RFP out there.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item?
I think it's really important to keep that as accurate as you can. 1 month, when this is the primary determining data for you to bill people, it's in their best interest and yours to keep it as accurate as possible. I can't imagine basing an entire rate structure on 1 month of weather. I would encourage it to stay the way it is because I think it's one of the single most important things the board or its staff does. So it's worth getting somebody.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery wishing to comment on this item? Is there any more discussion from the board? There's been-
I would hope that we get it done quickly because we gotta get it started.
Okay.
So that it's not,
So we'll
It
direct
takes-
staff to do this immediately. Okay. So there's a motion and a second. Is everyone ready to vote then? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you. Unanimous. Number 7, 2018-19 joint budget update. So I just wanted to give a quick update, and I see we have John Buffalo here, so you can comment as well on this. We've asked Mr. Buffalo to give us a presentation, and he's been communicating with our interim district director, Joe Tate. And you said the meeting in April was the best meeting time for you, so that's when we're setting it up, and then our first regular meeting in April. Are you still good for that one?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so just the process is, Mr. Buffalo and our district manager have been meeting, going over the city budget. Then when that gets somewhat solidified, it goes to the budget committee. The budget committee tries to get answers from the city, any questions they might have on anything, and then brings the budget to the full board with recommendations. And then at that point, the full board reviews the budget, and we have a joint meeting with the city to approve the budget. And that is the process. And so I just wanted to give everybody a clear communication on that and get an update from Mr. Buffalo as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've been in contact with Joe Tate about assembling a schedule for joint work between the district and the city on budget development. A few days ago, a little over a week ago, I emailed this board and your director or general manager, Joe Tate, the city's budget schedule, budget development schedule. And just to give this body and Mr. Tate a perspective of timelines and processes involved in our development. Since then, I developed the same schedule, tying to the city schedule, but tried to really point out milestones and processes related to the city and the district working together. So this is very much in draft stage. I sent it to Mr. Tate today. He said it would be fine to share with the board. This is kind of where we are in discussions about how to line up these between the two bodies. So nothing in here is written in stone. Mr. Tate wanted to discuss it with the board in more detail. The approach I'm leaning towards and talking with Mr. Tate is first having a kickoff meeting with both bodies, full bodies, joint bodies, and have a high-level discussion about the sewer budget. goals, objectives, capital projects that are being proposed or planned, that sort of thing. Then bring it back through the month of April and early May to ad hoc committees to work out the details, discuss the numbers. If both ad hocs agree with that process, then they would both make recommendations to the full respective governing bodies for adoption. So that's just my thought process of how it might best work. It's similar to how it's working with the city and development of the city budget. So I'll leave that with you for further consideration and discussion. April 11th is the date that we're targeting to do an overview of the city's accounting processes as pertains to sewer. And that might be a good date for this joint meeting between the two agencies because the city council could also benefit from reviewing that information, how we do accounting, the budget process, and having that dialogue with the district board about big picture items before we start the nitty-gritty stuff. So, are there any questions that I can answer this time about kind of this draft schedule and what we're thinking?
I think April 11th is our regular board meeting, right?
Well, but yeah, I guess he's going to be presenting it to us, so it would be beneficial if the city
was
council
there
also
too.
heard the same information.
No, I know, so if we had a joint meeting, but, no. I was just throwing it out to this board that, you know, I just told the gun club we would bring an item back to our April 11th meeting.
That's more of
Why couldn't we?
we've already approved it, it's more of reading it, and it's, the resolution's here.
Yeah, so would we be able to have a board meeting and what time were you looking at for a joint meeting?
No time to do it, but if 6 o'clock works for this board, I'm sure we can discuss it with the council.
So we could have maybe a board meeting prior to the joint meeting at the city chambers?
Yeah.
Would that be okay with this?
I mean, I'm going to make that recommendation to city council. I
Okay.
think they would be receptive.
Since it's our regular board meeting date, that would, if we could just have a little bit of time, we'll keep it short though, anything important. Any discussion from the board?
I like this. This is the first time I've ever seen anything quite like this.
Yeah, I have never seen anything like this before either, thank you. Appreciate it.
What's that?
Progress.
Mr. Lesak,
Forward,
you have your pen up?
So we are moving forward here. This is
Yeah.
good
with the budget is.
for the whole process. Let's be optimistic.
If there are, we'll count on the 11th, okay? If there are no other questions for Mr. Buffalo, does anyone else from the gallery have a comment on this agenda item? Nope, see none. We'll move forward. District manager report. I have an email I just wanted to share that I got today. It's just some projects that our district manager has been working on, one of which has been the budget with Mr. Buffalo. He's been working on the gun club with the gun club representatives, Mendocino Lake Community College District, 1550 South State Street property, the Jensen truck stop, renovation, Chevron Station expansion, Mendocino Drive. And I thought there was a bridge project too. Bridge, you would know.
I think the county intends to rebuild the bridge at Hensley Creek. Is
That's
that-
Hensley Creek
or-
Bridges.
Or, excuse me, Ackerman Creek,
That's it, Ackerman Creek
which
Bridge.
will require the realignment or, I don't know, Tim, what's that gonna require? The sewer, it really shouldn't affect the sewer, right? I mean, the sewer's not going across the bridge, it'll affect Millview more than anything, they'll have to move the water line. The sewer really can't go across the creek. Everything, we've hooked the old Fowler, right now the Indian Casino or whatever, up to the sewer. Or,
Shouldn't affect the
So-
sewer system.
Okay, so I just wanted to provide the board the newest information I had about what our district manager's working on.
Did he also submit the hours for?
I have not received a timesheet
No, he
yet.
hasn't.
Okay. Anyone from the gallery wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, is there any more budget board discussion on this item? Now let's move on. Discussion and possible action, recruitment of an auditor. We need an auditor to complete audits and looking for board direction to authorize staff to put together an RFP to recruit an auditor.
Do you have anything on that?
I think we should do it quickly and in a short turnaround. You know, a week or 2 weeks, open in a week or 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then address it at our next board meeting. Any candidates?
Next board meeting is the,
11th.
would have to kind of mark it out a little bit for you to do the
Yeah, you can't, it'd be a little difficult to have candidates at a joint meeting.
Either way,
Maybe a special meeting at the end of the month.
We'll have a special meeting.
Or we could put together a special meeting, 2 days later. If we get that RFP out and within 2 weeks we have 5 or 6 candidates, we can throw a meeting together in 24 hours.
And if you want, we can wait till the special meeting, the second special meeting, if it takes more time. Yeah.
Is there any other board discussion on this?
So who would put together the RFP?
I'll ask staff to do that. I'll ask Chelsea.
Doug and I will probably work on that together.
And Joe will work on that. He's done a million of those. We can look at the one we had for the last auditors that we got, so. Shouldn't be too difficult to dig that up and just recreate it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Cut and paste.
Exactly. Change date.
Change date.
White out.
Look at things.
Old school.
move around. Yeah.
Is there any comment from the gallery on this item?
Is this for your annual 26909 audits? Is that what your
This is for every audit that we have not done in the past 5 years.
required annuals?
Yes.
We can't bring up a district manager since it's not on the agenda.
Nope. That was referred to committee, so I have to get a recommendation from the committee.
Now that I know that we can set our own agendas, that will be happening.
Hey, we're all learning here. You know, everybody, we're gonna get,
So I
we're
think
3
we
months
can do
into
that,
a process that is completely foreign.
We'll talk and set up a date.
Okay,
do you need a motion?
yes I do, yes sir.
I make a motion that we set up direct staff to put together an RFP for an auditor.
I'll second that.
Been a motion is second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you. Okay, item number 10, discussion and possible action, dual signatures on district checks, and this is requested by Director Reed.
Right, I did request this to come up at our first meeting that we had in December. It was brought to our attention that there's only one signature on the checks, and at that time we had said that we would bring it forward to the next meeting. So now we have it here 2 months later to discuss. Before it's sent to governance, I want to know if that would be the full board's wish to have dual signatures on district checks. I think that it would be beneficial for us to have dual signatures as a check and balance so that we know what checks are being written.
So which 2 signatures were you looking for? 2 board members? What are you looking for?
2 board members.
So I did ask Chelsea her opinion on this, and I also asked her to go ask the water districts what their policy is on this. So Chelsea?
So my viewpoint on it is that the only thing we pay out of our SBMC account, which is what you want dual signatures on checks, is Comcast $69 bill, rent maxes out less than $600. My payroll, Joe's not getting paid out of SBMC anymore. Most of everything is going through the county. Susan David bookkeeping and Scott's Booth riveting, or Patrick. So I think it's completely unreasonable for me to track down 2 board members multiple times a month just to get a Comcast bill signed or to get Susan David's $6 bookkeeping check signed. I mean, most of our bills, including our district engineers now, are going through the county, through disbursement in which I can sign.
And what's the water district's policies for their checks?
So they have, I forget, there's 3 in there now, Hopland, Millview, Willow, and Redwood Valley, yeah. So they were talking to me about our situation and they said that they don't have two board members that sign their checks. They said it would be more reasonable if we had a district manager in office. And sure, dual signatures with district manager signature and board member signature is reasonable. And that's what they do. One of the districts in there does manager and one board member for their dual signatures on checks. So that's just my opinion.
Director Webb?
I would be more inclined to have two board members authorized to sign so that if one's unavailable and then something needs to get taken care of, that it could, I think, like, our expenditures from that account are small enough and they're reviewed at our monthly meeting that, you know, if there's a problem, we can get that taken care of.
Right. We actually, at our last meeting, we authorized Director Bacham to be a second signature on those if I'm not available.
You mean one or the other, not both?
One or the other, I don't.
And as soon as I get the minutes from that meeting and this board approves those minutes, then I can take them to the bank and follow through with that action.
Or if anybody's, I would hope that nobody's worried about somebody being inappropriate, but we could set a dollar limit on, you know, $5,000 or whatever you want to set on having different authorization.
We already have a policy.
In a policy that Mr. Tate brought forward a few months ago. I don't remember what the limit was, but there was a recently adopted policy that set a limit on the amount that he was authorized to sign, or that anyone was authorized to sign.
I vaguely remember, it wasn't 500, was it?
No, it's 5,000 or 10,000, I think, I don't remember. I mean, I'd have to find a policy.
I don't think it's 10,000.
No,
I think it's 5,000.
Because I understand the sense of a check and balance is you get two people signing a check, just cover about that. But if it's just for these expenses that go out in monthlies, I don't know if that's going to be, you know, and that's going to prevent the fluidity of what we need to hear.
What about the county, coming from the county, the approval of expenditures coming from the county?
Right now,
They're approved by the chair, and I have signing authority, and she has signing authority, but they're ran through her before they're even
Maybe those should.
And then they're approved by the
county out.
By the county auditor who looks at them, and they have to have specific information before he will approve.
right.
Well, maybe we should too.
I have gotten calls from the county auditor requesting additional information on certain things we put through before. And I've directed Chelsea to put as much through the county as possible because I think that's it's easier to audit when we have everything going through the county versus splitting it up. So only the very small routine things, those 5 items we're writing checks for so they can be on time. Everything else, Hydro, Pacific, everything goes through the county office. So if you would like to address a policy regarding 2 signatures on that would be different than what policy.
Would this be possible as part of the governance committee to put together a policy to bring back to the board?
Regarding what?
I mean, so the reason why the dual signatures came up on the checks was because there were a large number of checks being written from at the time, Bank of America and now Savings Bank account, and there wasn't a whole lot of control, I feel, about that. So now if you're saying that those are the only things coming,
Yeah.
then, and we now can check that every 2 weeks, we have meetings, then yeah, I would say that now the check and balance lies at the county and what's being requested. So I would like to see 2 signatures for requests.
Maybe over a certain amount or something.
Is that we're looking for board direction here.
I don't object to the idea of 2 signatures on something, but just it has to do with is it just the general purchases or, and then that's possibly what you're talking about, a cost limit or something. Maybe a little clarification. I did like the idea of governance because I would like more information.
How about, have you read the policy? Do you know what it states?
I don't know.
Maybe we should review the policy and then come back. Yes?
And I can provide to the governance committee information between myself and county council and Lloyd Weir regarding what we need to provide to them, the information we
even
We
sure.
hashed that out over the last couple of months.
I'm not even sure if there is a policy on requests from the county. I haven't seen one when I've gone through the policies, and I don't see one listed, so. that'll be
No,
something to look through.
there's state law that says what needs to be included in those requests and the information.
Dr. Webb?
So I can provide that to you.
Well, I think it's very important that we procure a general manager, and once we've procured that general manager, that I think dual signatures may hamstring that person somewhat on small items. Maybe we set a limit, and, you know, I think we need to review the policy and look into it a little further before we make a decision. I'd like to do that before we make a decision.
You don't have the policy on check writing?
It's not listed individually, so. Unless it's hidden in the other ones, but like I said, when I read through, I didn't see it, so.
So there's no board direction at this point to change the policy? Check
What
writing
about
policy?
our request to refer to the governance committee and get a little more clarification? It's hard for me to make any decision at this point, because I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have the policy in front of us.
Well, like I said, I don't even see that we have a
Well,
policy.
why doesn't the governance committee meet and bring back what the policy is and discuss any recommendations they might have in changing it, and the full board can discuss it at that point. Probably not April 11th, but maybe the following meeting. And if you can remind me to put that on the agenda, I appreciate it. Does that sound like the direction, board? Everyone in concurrence? Any comments from the gallery?
I really don't have a lot to say about that, but there was some erroneous information provided that I have proof of. In my fear of the approval of legal bills coming through here by the fact that one person can't really audit all of the minutia that gets billed through the lawyer's office. I requested some information from Mr. Ware, and I asked him what he required of this board to cut a check to Duncan James. And unless that's changed, I can provide the email to you. He said for services rendered. That, I don't know what you're referring to about what the state requires, but I can tell you that that would drive most normal auditors nuts. To cut a check of public funds to a law firm, for example, $80,000, and it's approved here by one person for services rendered. That is laughable. So that's more important than the petty cash thing.
Anyone else from the gallery have a comment? Any other board discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll close item number 10, and it is...
Before we go into closed session, I just want to make sure that John Crawford's letter will be addressed April 11th. regardless of everything
I would
else
like
that's
to
going on.
review the minutes from that meeting and see if the majority of this board approves putting a letter on
In our first December meeting, you had said that if one person requests an item to be on an agenda, that you would honor that.
Okay,
And I
well,
watched
we
that.
also have letters from 30 different ratepayers in the office. Should we put 30 letters on this? I understand that you want to investigate where money came from. No one on this board has any idea who paid for those ads. I have no idea, and he can speak for himself. Go investigate it as much as you want. Go to the Daily Journal, ask them who wrote the check. Go question the last chair, go question the attorneys. I don't care who you talk to.
Will I be scrutinized,
This-
Ms. Julie, for
this-
going above and beyond to do
This,
something that
it's
wasn't
not a
authorized?
board action.
Should-
It's not a board item.
Well,
This current board has nothing to do with that. I had absolutely no knowledge of any of that, don't know where they came from. None. I will swear on the Holy Bible. So for me to waste this board's time on a single letter from a single person when I have already 11 items on my agenda. Makes no sense. And I've gotten at least a dozen letters calling me immoral, inept, corrupt from this exact person. I'm sorry. You know, so go investigate it as much as you want. More power to you. You want to report back to the board what you found? We'll put it on the agenda to report back.
I think that the letter should be read in its entirety, publicly, and addressed. I requested it on the 10th of January, again on the 14th of this month. I've emailed it to you on the 21st, requesting that the letter be addressed.
Why do you want that letter read publicly?
Because I feel it should be.
Why?
Because I feel that it should be.
He's already read it 5 times at our meetings.
He's here every single meeting.
It doesn't say anything different than what he's saying in public comment, so.
I think that the board needs to have a discussion about it.
You know, I don't know if I'm out of bounds or not. I tried to call the Daily Journal and find out, and they wouldn't give me that information. I've asked Duncan and his staff if there was any disbursements made for that. They said no. You know, short of getting all of the disbursements from the district, from the county, and the check registers for the period that was in, which I haven't requested that. I would request.
He has. He's gotten all of them, Mr. Crawford has.
Mr. Crawford's gotten them all. Was there anything in there, Don, that showed that there was,
First of all,
anything inappropriate?
slow down.
Okay. This needs to not be a discussion and debate about something that's not on the agenda. If you want to talk about, if you want to talk about calendaring something, you can talk about calendaring something, but that's it. It needs to be limited to that.
No, I'm sorry, not wasting any more time on this. Is it so hard to think that a small number of people did that independently?
Not for me to speculate.
Independent from the rest.
To discuss as a board.
There's no good that can come of it. We're adjourned. 7 o'clock,
Closed session.
7:17, in a close, not adjourned, but closed session.
One more comment.
Okay.
I was just hoping that we put a time limit on getting out that RFP, like directing staff like next week, or not to drag it out. So do we have a reasonable amount of time that?
I said immediately,
It'll be
so
done as quickly as
I'll,
possible.
Oh, great.
I'll call
Okay.
the
Cut and paste.
Great,
7:18,
great.
closed session.
We're taking a break.
Yeah.
Ukiah Valley Sanitation District Board is back into open session. Closed section report out is that we gave direction to staff, and we are now adjourned at 8:40 p.m. Thank you.